Hello, I'm Terry Henner. I'm the Research and Scholarship Librarian at the Savitt Medical Library. And after watching this video, you should learn some techniques that will help you make more effective posters. So that's it in a nutshell. Let's dig in. And what do we mean by better, more effective posters? The most important thing in designing a poster is creating kind of visual cues and a structure that helps attract people, that convinces them quickly that it's a good idea to stop and look at your poster, read it, and talk to you. And you should realize that there's tremendous competition at poster sessions. A lot of posters, a lot of people, they're all milling around looking for something that they feel comfortable stopping and engaging with. So, what can you do to design a poster that's going to attract people more readily? Uh, you want people to stop and look at it, read it, talk to you. That's the whole idea. You don't want to be this kind of sad guy thinking, why won't anyone stop and talk to me? Well, there's some good reasons why people would not want to stop at this poster, and we'll go into that shortly. So, what influences poster attraction? What can you do to make a poster more appealing to people so they want to stop? Uh, there are a few things that we'll discuss again and again. The first is white space. You need to have a lot of white space in your poster. You need a large title because that's what people see when they're walking down the corridor. They're going to see a title and make a decision based on that, whether that's something they're interested in. You want to have good contrast in your poster, and that is partly to increase the legibility of the poster and the ability to absorb the entire navigational structure of the poster, and also just to make it kind of more vivid and interesting and lively. You want to have a predictable structure, and you want to limit the amount of words you use. You want to have a low text density. So even though we've gone into kind of these various different criteria, it sounds kind of like analytical, scientific. When you get down to it, it's explained very well in this book by Malcolm Gladwell called Blink. And he says that as humans, we make snap judgments. We determine from very little information and almost instantaneously what we want to do. Our decisions happen in the blink of an eye. And that's very true. If you look at this photo, you instinctively think, this is not good. I don't want to be here. You don't have to do much analysis. Your subconscious tells you, bad, bad scene, let's get out of here. In the same way, you look at this and immediately your breathing deepens, you relax, you feel calm, you think, I would like to stay here a while and engage with this. So that's the blink part of the process. It's very instinctive, it's very quick. There's very little intellectual analysis that takes place. And it's the same way when someone's looking at a poster. When you look at this poster, you think, well, here's the title. I can read that easily. Here are the sections of the poster. I can easily discern each of the sections and determine kind of a map or a path through the poster. You have the introduction, not too much text to get bogged down in, the methods, et cetera, et cetera. In the middle, you have some interesting data and graphs that are well defined. So you know 1, 2, 3, that's your path through those. And then you have some additional sections, and finally the end. So you could tell almost at a glance what the poster's about, how to work your way through it, and you're confident that you're not going to get bogged down. It's not going to take forever. Won't be an uncomfortable scenario. And it's all about comfort. When you are creating a poster, you want to design it in such a way that people looking at it feel comfortable. And the comfort factor comes entirely from a sense of familiarity. We'll talk about that, but you want people to look at it and have a familiar sense that they've seen posters like this before. They understand how to work through it, what the structure is. So they can avoid any kind of confusion or awkwardness. Again, what determines attraction? White space, large title, good contrast, predictable structure, low text density. That's your mantra. So you look at a poster like this, and it's just chaos. It looks like a bad carnival ride. You have this whirligig of stuff in the middle. You don't really know what's going on. What do these yellow boxes mean? Is there any connection between highlights and advantages and next steps? It doesn't appear to be. So once you get past the introduction, where do you go from here? It's chaos. It's a mess. You're not going to want to, unless you have some, you know, crazy interest in self-assembled nano rings. You're not going to stop here. It's just going to be too confusing, chaotic, and you'll move on. In the same way, here's a different poster, but a similar result, probably. It is so text heavy, right? It's just text after block of text, no breaking up. It just goes on and on. It kind of reads like a Russian novel. You know, you just have to plow through it. And people don't want to stop and read a poster that's very dense in text, partly because it's a lot of work. There's a lot of reading, but partly because in order to read it, you have to get right up to the poster and read it. You're standing there, you're blocking the view of people behind you. It's just an uncomfortable, awkward situation that you don't want to find yourself in. So you see a lot of reading, you just kind of move on to something else. And that's typically what happens when people see posters like that, they just run away. And you don't want to be the person they're running away from. Okay, so what drives viewers away? As we've learned, chaos, an unpredictable structure that is hard to navigate, and too much text. Okay, so that's pretty simple. Stay away from that. Now, moving from attraction to comprehension, you have someone standing there looking at your poster. What can help them comprehend it more easily? Well, you can use a good arrangement of columns and headers and banners to make the content more manageable and understandable. You could use a color scheme that uses good contrast to make it more legible, more attractive, make important things stand out. You can reduce the word count so your poster doesn't get crowded. You can use bullets in a judicious way to break up the text so it's easier to read and understand and less intimidating to wade through. And then you can eliminate non-essential content, and we'll talk about that later. Important to know when you're creating a poster, our eyes and our brain like to be led. We like to know where the starting point is, where the destination is, and what the path is to get from one end of it to another. So you are creating a journey, a map for people to follow. And fortunately, since our early ages, we've been conditioned to know how to create a map and how to follow it. We instinctively, because we read from left to right and we have all kinds of cultural reinforcement, we start at the upper left and then we wind our way down to the bottom and to the right, and we know we're at the end. So you can do that too in your poster. If you have any doubts about this, go to the cereal aisle and you'll see that every box of cereal, practically every box in the store, has some kind of logo in the upper left-hand corner. It's almost a reward to your brain because we're so conditioned to look up there. When we do see something, we go, oh, thank you. That's what I wanted to see. So when you approach a poster, people typically start at the top, scan the title, and then they zigzag their way through the bottom of the text. When you are creating a poster, predictable is good. I mean, there are times when you want to kind of break the mold, try something new or different, take a different approach. In posters, you don't want to do that because people appreciate something that is predictable, that's familiar. They want to know that the title is up here and the intro is here and the conclusion is down in the corner there. It would be like getting into a car, and each time you get into the car, the windshield wiper controls are in a different place, or the window uh, buttons are in a different place, or the steering wheel adjustment operates differently. Uh, it's frustrating. You want something to be the same each time you look at it. And so, because people have seen posters, they kind of have a concept in their mind of how they think it should be structured. That's their expectation. It's your job, your goal to meet their expectations, not to do something different, but to do something that's very familiar and expected so they'll feel confident when they look at the poster and try and work their way through it. So, contrast versus good contrast. Obviously, you want to avoid low contrast scenarios where you have, kind of a middle blue on a light blue. It's just kind of, it's harder to read, and it's also kind of low energy too. It lacks that vitality that you want. So black on white, black on gray, dark blue on white or gray, very readable, legible, has a nice look to it. White on black is also high contrast, but you want to avoid that in most cases because it can be very fatiguing to look at white on black. You start getting some kind of shimmering effects, and it just wears you out, especially if you're talking about the text. If you're looking at like using it for a header, that's one thing, or even in the banner, although that's kind of ill-advised. But for text in the body, your best bet is a very dark color against a very light color. Okay, so which is easier to read? Well, they're both pretty easy to read, and it's your preference. When you're making headers, it's very common to see a dark background with some light text on it. That works well, works easily or just as well to have dark text on a light background and a way of kind of defining the body of the header. So it's kind of your choice, depending on kind of the general layout of your poster. So, talked about contrast and low word count. Let's move to using columns and headers and banners to structure your poster more effectively, and using bullets and avoiding the non-essential content, and also keeping your font sizes proportional. This is all in the interest of enhancing poster comprehension. Okay, so first, columns and headers. This is a poster that's done a good job, reasonably good job, of defining their sections by using a nice header, white on blue, and then having the text block on white that sits on top of kind of a light blue background. So each section is set off from the next section. So you can see you have background and the text, and then it ends. There's a natural break, and then you have another section and a natural break, and another section and a break. You have a natural break between columns. So just based on your experience and your interpretation of this, you start here and you work your way down. And then you start here, you work your way down. You start in the third column, you work your way down. There's no ambiguity about it, pretty straightforward. Um, so that's a well done implementation using columns and headers. Contrast that with this example, which is full of problems. The biggest problem is that the text is on kind of a light gray background, and there's really no separation, except in your imagination, perhaps, between the columns. So it's kind of hard to tell, is this a column? Do you read up and down, or do you read across? You're not really certain, so you have to stop and think about it. You never want to have to stop and think when you're looking at a poster. It should be so obvious that you can stand in front of it and go, yeah, this is the poster I'm going to engage in. I understand it. I know how to navigate it. It's familiar. It feels good. What they've done with the headers, they don't really set off the section at all. They just interrupt a block of text. So you have all this text and then they throw a yellow bar in the middle of it. So it's not, I mean, you could figure it out, but it's not as clear what text belongs to which header. Okay, so it's not horrible, but it could be much better. Now, one thing I want you to consider too is choice of colors for a header. Here they're using black and yellow, and I guess they thought, well, that'll get people's attention, or it's very vivid. But think about it. What else is black text on yellow? Well, crime scene tape. So, when you see black on yellow in a poster, it doesn't necessarily send a good subliminal message. So you just need to be aware of that. Here's a poster that uses bullets effectively. Sometimes you have just a lot of text and it can appear overwhelming. So to break up the text, you can use bullets carefully to try and separate things out and create a little white space between the sections. So you have a bullet and a chunk of text and some white space, a bullet, a chunk of text, and white space. So that can work well to make your poster seem less claustrophobic, less overwhelming to the viewer. So you want to think about that. But you want to be careful too about using bullets as a crutch. So here's a section from a poster, and in the introduction really should have been two or three concise, well-designed sentences. And instead, they have all this text and they think, well, we'll just give a bullet to each sentence, and that way we're not overwhelming people with text, even though they are. And the whole poster is just one bullet after another. So you can overdo bullets and then they lose their impact. Bullets should be used to draw attention to some kind of salient point, not just to separate sentences out in a paragraph. So be careful about using bullets effectively. Okay, banners. That big chunk of color and text across the top of your poster. How do you make a good banner? How do you make a bad banner? Well, the most important thing, make a large title. Make your title as big as you can, 72-point font minimum. You can go up to even 90 for a 48 by 36 poster. Try and put the title on one line so that people don't have to read half of it and then go back and read the other half. You want them to be able to take in the title at one reading. And use title case. In other words, capitalize each word. It's just a convention that makes it easier to understand and digest, and it looks better. The banner itself the height of it should be relatively small compared to the total poster space. Your space is at a premium. You have a lot of text and images and things to stick into it, so you don't want to waste a lot of it with an overinflated banner that takes up so much of the vertical space. In your banner, I think it's a good idea to have a left justified title and everything else. Your author statement, just have everything left justified. It's cleaner and makes a better impact. Use non-serif fonts. They are more easy to discern and read. They're more legible. And have good color contrast. And finally, keep your author statement small. By that, I mean, people are not going to a poster session to see you or your name on a poster. They're going to see the poster and they want to see the title of the poster more than anything. That's the one thing that will stop them in their tracks and make them engage with the poster. So keep your name small, keep your logos small, your institutional information small, as small as you can, and still get away with it. You don't want to get in trouble with your institution by, like violating some norms. Here's a poster, kind of small font, smaller than it should be. It's almost the same size as like the author name. So that's bad right off the start. But also this is a justified layout. And the reason that it's bad, it's not the worst thing in the world, but what happens is your eyes start playing ping pong. You have to go from here to here, then back out to there and back into there. So it lessens the impact of the information and it makes you do a little more work. And, when push comes to shove, if you see a banner that just doesn't appeal to you, you'll move on. Contrast that with this poster from the same place. They have a nice large font. It's all left justified. It's, they had to kind of scroll over to a second line, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. But this is more impactful. It's sometimes hard to explain why, but you look at the last poster and then this one. This is the one that is more appealing, more direct, more powerful. You want your banner to say what it needs to say. Take as little height away from the body of the poster as you can. Okay, so here's a poster. Again, it's that like middle blue and light blue, hard to read. They also use a serif font, which looks kind of wimpy, and it's hard to read. And it's not just the banner itself. Let me take a second to pick apart this poster. The poster is like kind of gray on gray on gray. They have all these various shades of gray or grayish. Not only is it harder to read, but it lacks any vitality. It's not appealing to view, and it's kind of dark. It kind of saps your energy to look at it. So you want to try and avoid this sort of color scheme where everything is kind of in neutral tones and very grim and dim. Just bad. All 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 I can say is it's just bad. So the next poster, what's wrong with this poster? It has so many problems that I thought we could just address all those in one poster. Well, the first thing, the banner, this could be bigger. It could easily go across in one line if you didn't have these giant logos here getting in the way. You could easily have designed this so that you have like a title and then your logos, make them smaller, more compact, uh, and then shrink the whole height of the banner. And why would you want to do that? Well, one reason is look at the body. It's so jammed with text. It's like busy, busy, busy. You feel overwhelmed looking at this. I mean, I would walk past this and think, it's just too much. You've got all these tables and a lot of text. Also, and this is something you want to pay particular attention to or give some consideration to, don't have an abstract in your poster. I mean, a poster already is kind of a synthesis or a summary of your research. So why do you need a summary of summary? It just is useless. It takes up so much space and it kind of restates what you already have in the poster. Your poster should have objectives and methods and results. So why present that all over again in an abstract? It's a waste of space. Also, references, sometimes you're required to have references, but you don't need all your references. You could just say significant references and have one, two, or three references. And then if you like, have a QR code, which will take you to the rest of your references on a stable website someplace that you've established. So you could do that. You could shorten your references, make them more compact, get rid of the abstracts so you have much more room, and put the introduction up here where it really belongs. Because what does everyone want to read? First thing, introduction. So put the introduction where it belongs. You'll attract people that want to stop and engage more readily. And also, white space. You don't need all this kind of blue on blue on blue. Uh, it's just unappealing and overwhelming. So fix the banner, get rid of the abstract, fix your references, get a lot of white space, and don't use as many figures in here. It's just, I think you're overwhelming people with data. Okay, so constructing a template, just some general boilerplate guidelines for a 4x3 poster, which is very common at conferences. Your title, as I said, minimum 72 point, the header about 50 point, the body text 36. That keeps it proportional and looking balanced. In each section, about 100 words. These are just general guidelines. For the total body of the text, probably 800 to 1,000 words max anymore, and it starts looking just oppressive and too complicated and overwhelming. And then use non-serif fonts. So if you go to the school of medicine website, you'll see this template that someone has designed and suggested you use. I don't know if it's like a hard and fast requirement you use this, but I did see a poster rather on a website using this template. I'm not sure if this is a real poster or not, but it existed. Someone made it. And I'm not really going to comment on it, but I'd like you to think about what we've discussed so far and apply some of that to analyze the design here. And if it meets our goals and criteria, does it exhibit a lot on a website? Does it have a big title that's easy to read? Does it flow? Is there a kind of an obvious map taking you from a beginning to an end point? Just for fun, I took that template and I just took a couple minutes to change the color scheme a little bit so that you could have a white background with text on it and widen the columns so you have more room. Made the banner height less, but the title actually bigger. And this is showing you what the font size is. So 90 for the title and 36 and 75 for the header. Just to give you some idea of how changing the font sizes affects the proportionality of it. So, I mean, this isn't great. I wouldn't really use this particular template, but gives you an idea of how you can adapt things to make it a little brighter, inject a little vitality into your poster. And I say that because in the end, it's your work, it's your research, it's your name, you're the author, you take responsibility and you get the credit or the lack of credit for the poster. So you may as well make it something that suits you and that you're happy with. Now, I don't know if you have to adhere to the standards of that template or not anymore, but I know that I found many school of medicine posters on the web. Here's one that was presented at a conference, and you can see that they've taken liberties with that template, or maybe not even use the template at all. So something to think about when you're designing your poster. Do you have free reign to do what you want, or are you constrained by their idea of what a poster should look like? Just give it some thought. Okay, that is the end. I hope you learned something valuable here, and feel free to contact me if you have any questions about this. Thank you very much for listening, and hope it's been helpful.